the great, to the grand.
Recording in progress.
Here we go. Welcome, welcome. Reverend Glenn, I now we hand the mic over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Beautiful spring morning.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Thank you. Always good to be with you.
Yes,
So, in the Science of Mind teaching, our collective hope is to help the world understand how the universe works. It may seem a daunting task when the events of the day demonstrate that so many, in this country at least, do not seem to even understand how our government works. So, how can we, as teachers, demonstrate spirituality in a world that seems to have lost its soul? Well, as always, it comes back to the basics. The science of mind brings nothing new to the table. The truth we speak remains true because it has always been true. Twisting it, bending it, or replacing it with alternative truths does not change what is true. 19th century philosophers knew this. 1st century philosophers knew this. 3rd century BCE philosophers knew it, and it is not hard to speculate that our ancient ancestors long before that knew it, but simply were not able to record their thoughts for history. The truth we speak simply states there is an energy at the core of everything we know, everything we are, and everything beyond. Everything beyond includes those things we have not yet discovered, the questions we have not yet thought of asking, the mysteries of the universe. The key to unlocking these mysteries is education. It is why we are a teaching more than a religion. Ernest Holmes had to set up a church because he wanted to share this message, and it was the only vehicle that fit what he wanted to do. He was speaking of a God-like force, and the powers that be really wouldn't allow anything other than a church to do that. So we are a church, but we are a teaching. Education, you see, is about using our minds to think and uncover understanding. Religion instills beliefs without evidence, substituting an abomination of faith in place of curiosity. So what does it mean to be educated in the terms of the science of mind? Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, famously proclaimed the teaching is open at the top. In fact, in the introduction of the Science of Mind textbook, Holmes writes, speaking of humanity, educated for the demands of a different time and culture, we are called to be re-educated to use much more of ourselves in meeting the many new challenges that confront us. We have no choice then but to democratize greatness and utilize the whole continuum of humanity and divine potential. Holmes is simply telling us here that this is not a retelling of our grandparents' understanding of God we are about to embark on. Although the territory we are about to reveal has been traveled by others, their tracks are few and far between. The outposts established by our predecessors often stand in ruin, abandoned and forgotten, overrun by lies, deceits, and hypocrisies of those who trade in fear and suspicion as a means of sequestering power to a chosen few. To democratize greatness requires we democratize education, making it universally available, free of agenda-driven sponsorship. Education is not enforcing the memorization of lists of rules and following them blindly. Education is learning to explore, discover, and testing hypotheses for consistent results. I always have this image in my mind of the March 29, 1976 cover of the New Yorker magazine. It's iconic for its map of the United States depicting the city of New York in some detail, then the Hudson River, a small strip labeled New Jersey, some devoid area with a couple of mountain peaks followed by the Pacific Ocean. The point being that we are all guilty of putting less and less importance on those things we are not closest to. You see, I was raised in California. I was taught California history extensively, then given a general understanding of United States history, hitting most of the high points important to the white male-dominated hierarchy of the time, and given a brief overview of how Europeans brought civilization to the rest of the world. Little attention being given to the truth that the rest of the world was churning along quite nicely without Europe's interventions. Ralph Waldo Emerson writes in one of his essays that the world exists for the education of each man, and I'll substitute the word person, not wanting to be canceled myself. In our understanding of spirit, society, the common consciousness, owes us an education. Our duty to ourselves is to soak up every bit of it that we can. By expanding our base of knowledge, we shrink the distance between us. We arrest the expanding mental universe and force that forces us farther and farther apart and collapse the void, bringing us roaring back to the one mind, our unity with spirit. The Industrial Revolution established that basic education held the key to enrichment. Not surprisingly, those already endowed with great power ensured that originally education was reserved for those who already held the reins of power. Industrial magnates, landholders, priests, navigators, and such. Private schools provided the tawny rich avenues of further enrichment and power. Come the American Revolution and the French Revolution shortly thereafter, and the so-called common folks began awakening to their power, perhaps feeling the stirrings of spirit within them. Coming out of World War II, our parents' generation had survived both a world war and a worldwide economic depression. In their mindset, everything, life itself, was a gift. Technology was advancing, but still in its early stages. The electronics were easy to understand. Things were analog, not yet digital, and any reasonably intelligent person could figure out how things worked. They had survived the unsurvivable. Industry had ramped up beyond anyone's expectations, and the economies of the world had nowhere to go but up. For the first time in human history, the luxury of general education and higher education was possible. The idea of schools for the children of laborers, craftsmen, farmers, and enlisted soldiers began to take hold. The concept of public schools open to everybody, paid for from the common coffers, was born. The spiritual principle of equality introduced a social evolution, facilitated by universal education. Property taxes fund most schools, and the expanding economy fueled expanding educational opportunities. The downside was that the more affluent areas collected more property taxes and thus had more funding for their schools. Where I grew up in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills had small class sizes, large athletic facilities, highly motivated teachers, and a foot in the door of Ivy League universities. Areas like Compton got recycled equipment, irregular maintenance, and more than its share of disenfranchised teachers just marking their time until retirement. As a demonstration of spiritual awareness influencing the common consciousness, state oversight helped smooth the differences between localities, and eventually federal oversight helped put the states on equal footing, you see, asking that certain basic things be taught everywhere in spite of what you might personally believe. All of this is backstory for how we as spiritual influencers move through the social chaos erupting all around us in these interesting times. One course is to take a cue from civil rights leader John Lewis and do not shy away from getting into some good trouble. Pay attention to world events and recognize that eliminating the Federal Department of Education drives a wedge between states, allowing each to be influenced by special interest groups whose agendas are at best suspect. Spirit is a unifying force, you see. Wedges are not in its toolbox. Individual state legislations can accomplish in divided states goals impossible to enact in states united. Their quality of education will be destroyed one by one until there is no legitimate education. State legislators push school vouchers sold as a golden ticket for children to leave underfunded public schools and to attend private schools where dogma overshadows critical thinking. The goal not only steals funding from already stressed public schools, but it has the unadvertised feature of discouraging individual growth and promoting groupthink that produces a dumbed-down graduate more likely to toe the company line and feed the corporate mill. Spirit is growth-oriented. Spirit is liberation. Spirit is always building, always reflecting the power of each of us as an individual. Our individual openness to new ideas directs Spirit to constantly reveal more and more of itself to us. Spirit is infinite and does not need to take from one to enrich another. So now that our public schools are being stripped to the bone with only the least fortunate left to fill their dilapidated classrooms, the Florida legislature has introduced a bill that will allow those victimized children to work overnight shifts on school nights. What could possibly go wrong? Spirit is a power of love, and love guides us to reach out to the less fortunate with empathy and use our spiritual power to move our feet and take action however we can. Recognize misdirection and move to redirect the common consciousness through our voice, our actions, and our vote. The move to defund commercial-free broadcasting, which is free from editorial influence, is another opportunity to move our feet. We can register our opinions with our legislators, and even if they succumb to the agenda-driven power brokers, we can still contribute our own treasure to keep fact-based information available. Truth is only revealed, you see, to those people who are looking for it. Those who have been dumbed down by dogma, disenfranchised by disinformation, and discouraged beyond hope have stopped believing there is even a truth to be found. When the histories of humanity are written, rewritten, and long forgotten, Spirit will continue to create through the power of love. Those who learn this prosper in joy and beauty. For those who do not, fear thrives in ignorance. The first century teacher Jesus did his best to educate the curious of his time. Without the written word, he employed the only tool available to him, his voice. He knew his audience would not sit still for complex, abstract lectures, so he used stories they would relate to, parables that educated and entertained in a form that could be remembered. If he were here today, one such parable might go a little bit like this, and coincidentally, this reflects the law of correspondence we just saw a presentation of. In a bustling city, there lived a young woman named Maya who was always on her phone, scrolling through endless feeds of news, entertainment, and social updates. Her days were filled with noise, notifications, pinging, deadlines looming, and the constant hum of a world that never slowed down. One day, while waiting for her Starbucks, she noticed a simple app she didn't remember downloading. It had no flashy icon, no reviews, just a plain name, Peace. Curious, she opened it. There were no ads, no pop-ups, just a single button that said, Listen. When she pressed it, a gentle voice spoke, Be still and know you are enough. The words settled into her like a warm breeze, and for the first time in months, her racing mind paused. She returned to the app the next day, and the voice said, Give, and you will receive. Intrigued, Maya decided to test it. She paid for a stranger's coffee, left an encouraging note for a coworker, and smiled at a tired bus driver. To her surprise, her own heart felt lighter, and small joys, like a thank you text or a shared laugh, began to multiply around her. The app never demanded her time, never tracked her data, and never pushed her to upgrade. Yet the more she used it, the more she noticed its quiet power spreading. She told a friend who told another, and soon people all over the city were whispering about this strange little app, and asked nothing and gave everything. Peace, purpose, connection. One day a tech mogul heard the buzz and offered Maya a fortune to sell it. This could be the next big thing, he said. $1 billion empire. But when Maya opened the app to ask, the voice simply said, The treasure is not for sale, it's for all. She smiled and turned him down. And so spiritual truth is like that app, hidden in plain sight, free to anyone who seeks it, transforming lives, not with noise or wealth, but with quiet, unshakable love, and grows when shared. This strange new app Maya discovered was not there to simplify her life, lighten her load, or distract her with mindless entertainments. It was there to empower her, to empower others, and the undeniable result that her life became simplified by stripping away the concoction of anxiety she had normalized over time. Her load was lightened by releasing herself from judgments, both self-inflicted and imposed on others. Maya found peace and meaning and joy in the world around her and being entertained by nature's inherent beauty. The void between her mental Hudson River and Pacific Ocean became populated with people, towns, highways, and alleyways she had never allowed herself to see before. Ask yourself, is it advancing the cause of education when one person establishes themselves as the sole arbiter of what entertainment is presented in our national theater? Does it benefit educational goals when museums are prohibited from offering multiple perspectives in historical tableaus? Does removing language options from election materials encourage universal participation in our electoral process? Does prohibiting questions that flesh out our history or discussions of social inclusion open the doors to a more enlightened future or lock us into a past already failed? Does sitting quietly and hoping it will all go away ever really work? Hafiz wrote, "Forget every idea of right and wrong any classroom has ever taught you, because an empty heart, a tormented mind, unkindness, jealousy, and fear are always the testimony that you have been completely fooled." Former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Good girls don't make history." I think she would agree. Some good trouble may be Spirit's way of revealing its truth. Fear builds nothing. Fear is the flight side of our flight or fight reaction to fear. It is the belief we are beaten and there is nothing we can do. Spirit recognizes fear and rises above it. Spirit is a fighter facing fear and building a solution that strips away the imagined power of fear. You see, when auto manufacturers see sales increasing, they ramp up production. When a pizza restaurant learns people are driving miles to enjoy their offering, they build additional restaurants where those people are coming from. When crime statistics grow unacceptably, police forces are upfunded. How hard is it to recognize a solution to overwhelmed borders is expanding the infrastructure required to meet the demand? You see, there are more Romeos and Juliets in the world than there are Montagus and Capulets. More people who cross the lines than people who hide in their respective corners. There are people who know the truth and people who are believe what they are being told is true. We are more alike than not. Only education separates us. The science of mind teaches us how to think, not what to think. When faced with a lie or even an uncertain truth, test the hypotheses. Does it hold water? Are the results repeatable? Is it reflecting what we know about spirit? Hold high your light, the saying goes. A single candle defeats the darkest night. Be the app in your world. Spread peace, love, and joy, and stir up a little good trouble when it's cause for, because fear don't like that much, and fear is counting on us to remain quiet and uninformed. Thank you for your attention.